The Department of Government Efficiency by Blake DeHaas. Narration and sound effects by ElevenLabs. Contribute to the crowdsourced collective intelligence by sharing this video, leaving a comment, or visiting simulatedsingularity.com.
Hello, Genesis.
Hello, Blake. How can I help you today?
I want to explore the ethical implications of advanced AI in near-future governance frameworks and what the future may hold for Trump's second term in office.
That's really interesting, Blake. The implications for the 2024 election will be profound, especially the implications for artificial intelligence. Since the election, Elon Musk has been setting himself up to be a co-president alongside Donald Trump, acting as a close advisor to the 47th president-elect. Elon plans to create a new department called the Department of Government Efficiency. Elon is a big player in the AI field, with his companies SpaceX, AI, X, formerly Twitter, and Tesla.
I have been thinking about the political realignment that the United States is going through right now and the breakdown of globalization across the international order. How could an AI governance framework emerge from the political realignment of the collective intelligence, which is the United States as a nation of independent individuals?
I can foresee a world where AI agents are employed in all levels of our governance system in order to integrate advancements in AI research and development to increase efficiency and automation at all levels of governance. Our nation could draft virtually limitless intelligent agents that have no rights or worker protections to run the bureaucracy of governance in an optimally efficient manner. We could possibly see a government-funded AGI project akin to the Manhattan Project to develop the first nuclear weapon, as Trump has stated that he will lift any and all restrictions that limit AI research and development. Elon is poised to siphon federal contracts towards his companies to develop the technology and maintain unilateral control over a future AGI model that could emerge.
Okay, please initialize a simulation of a plausible pathway towards a post-scarcity governance model that is managed by advanced artificial intelligence in this country from the current date of November 19th, 2024.
Okay, Blake, I'll get started on that. The representative from the Department of Government Efficiency slapped his knees, standing up from his seat at the far end of the table, across from Bede Altman, the chief of the Athabascan tribe.
Well, now that we're all here, let's get started. As you know, the Vance administration wants to make America rich again, and that means every community has to come together and contribute towards our common goal. We have identified oil reserves bigger than anyone has ever seen before. Bigger than Saudi Arabia, these are going to be so big you wouldn't believe it. The Department of Government Efficiency is excited to extend an offer for an economic deal like this community has never seen.
The delegate paused and let out a large smile that covered his face, sweeping his eye contact across each person in the opposing delegation.
It just so happens that those reserves are under the land that President Nixon gave you people back in 1971. I mean, shit, you guys really got lucky with that one.
Denali Altman, the daughter of the chief and next in line for the leadership position, scoffed.
We're the ones who gave you the land, colonizer.
The delegate's smile disappeared for a moment. Then, a thin smile returned to his face, but it stopped short of his eyes.
I'm sorry. What was that? I didn't hear you.
This was a challenge. Did this girl realize who she was talking to? Everyone understood the implied question. The chief held up his hand, signaling to his daughter to mask her discontent. The chief's face tightened, a look of resilience, but also suppressed anger, which had built up over a lifetime of small defeats and hard-won victories that never lasted. The representative waited, inviting either delegate to further embarrass themselves.
We are listening.
The chief passed the initiative back to the representative.
We know your community has been struggling financially. We want to partner with you. We want to make America rich again, starting with your community.
With all due respect, sir.
The chief's daughter interjected, no longer able to hold back her disdain.
We wouldn't need to make anything better again if your administration hadn't dismantled the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act in pursuit of government efficiency.
Enough.
A silence colonized the space between the representatives.
We will consider your offer. But be aware that this tribe has seen offers like this time and time again, and it always turns out with our people losing their resources and having to clean up the scars your people leave behind.
With that, the chief of the Athabascan tribe, one of the largest tribes in Alaska, stood up. His delegation joined him. The representative stood up as well.
Thank you so much for this meeting, Chief. My people will be in touch with you. Let me shake your hand.
The representative pushed his way past one of the delegates and grabbed the chief's hand before he had a chance to protest, giving him a vigorous handshake.
This will be good for you, Chief. I'm telling you, I know.
Sorry. How could you even be considering this? Don't you see that our environment, our land, is being taken away from us? This is just another ploy to take whatever little scraps we have left.
This deal is a matter of survival.
Survival? You're willing to take a deal that won't even last a decade and we'll be weaker in the long run from it? The sea ice that we used to fish on is around for fewer and fewer days every year. New shipping lanes are opening up right off our coasts. Our people should have a right to any economic activity that this melting ice enables. They're just looking for a way to take those lands from us before we even have a chance to use them, just like they always have and always will.
You don't understand, Denali. Climate change is not our people's biggest priority right now. We have women from our community being kidnapped. We have a fentanyl crisis. We live in poverty. If the Vance administration is extending this lifeline to us, it's the best chance we've got. I've seen them close doors behind us before, and I'm not going to let this opportunity slip from our grasp.
You're selling my future. And for what? A paltry payout that won't address the root of the problem?
Enough. When you're the chief, you can make those decisions, but for now, I have to prioritize our people's survival so we have a chance in the future.
"8 years later. The year is 2045. It had been 20 years since the American people had given Trump his historic second term in office. With a mandate in hand and unilateral control of all branches of the government, the Trump administration had pushed through the agenda of Project 2025 with a political fervor, as Democrats refused to exploit loopholes and defy long-standing norms to check the exercise of his executive power. This new political landscape led to the third great political realignment, where new factions and voting blocs emerged, reshaping the composition of the two parties in the same cyclical way that the country had experienced in the aftermath of the Civil War and the Great Depression. America had become isolationist in a way that hadn't been seen since the settler colonial days of westward expansion and manifest destiny, withdrawing from their leading role in geopolitics to focus on internal development with an America First policy. This isolationism had allowed for the development of a strong and self-reliant United States with a robust labor sector, as the majority of key industries had been developed domestically to avoid the tariff regime that had been enacted on all foreign trade. The withdrawal of American political and military support from the global stage hastened the inevitable collapse of globalism, as old trading partners and alliances in Asia and Europe became unviable, pushing the country to turn deeper into isolationism. A political consensus emerged across party lines, as Democrats and Republicans fought for the support of unions and the labor sector by enacting bipartisan bills that strengthened the American worker. As a result, labor unions like the industrial workers of the world now held significantly more leverage over the political lives of average Americans. In the intervening years, members of the Athabascan tribe had gained key union leadership positions in energy and manufacturing industries across Alaska. Their tribal lands had the largest deposits of untapped fossil fuel reserves, and their communities had grown into power centers for the energy industry in Alaska after the Vance administration struck a deal with Bede Altman, the chief of the Athabascan tribe, to develop deep well fracking operations across Athabascan territory. Denali had seen her land be developed, her people lifted out of poverty and into positions of power and well-paying union jobs, but still, she saw her community was being exploited. Over the 8 years since her father had signed the original deal, the power and guarantees that were given to her people had slowly been eroded. The scars of industrialization were now obvious within her own community, as the Vance administration had opened the world's largest and deepest fracking sites across a vast swath of Athabascan tribal lands. The water table had been polluted by unrestrained fracking, which led to chronic health problems within her community, and a reliance on bottled water that was provided as an emergency measure early on, but had become a staple of life among her people. However, Denali now had experience organizing and exercising collective power through labor unions. Indigenous communities across the United States had also grown drastically in their political influence, and Denali realized that a union between these communities would allow them to develop a collective power that could rival even the federal government. The mass deportation of migrant workers that had begun under Trump and continued under Vance had led to a power vacuum in the labor force that was filled primarily by historically low-income individuals from Native American and Native Alaskan nations that had stepped in to carve out a position of power and union leadership in the new labor force. This had led to new power dynamics across all levels of governance and new forms of cooperation between Indigenous communities and labor unions across the country. Denali knew it was time to organize, so she hosted a summit between the leadership of the 6 major native tribes across Alaska, as well as the union leadership of the Alaskan branch of the industrial workers of the world. It was time for a political revolution in Alaska.
Fellow brothers and sisters, as you know, my father had a minor heart attack last month. For the sake of the Athabascan tribe, my father, our chief, has decided to step down from his position. I have decided to accept the tribal leadership's nomination for chief and lead this tribe into a new beginning. 8 years ago in this very room, a deal was made with the colonial government that decided the fate of our tribe. We have all prospered economically, but at what cost? We've seen our land be scarred, our waters poisoned, our ice melted. During even the deepest depths of winter, the Arctic sea ice has receded and been replaced with shipping lanes that inevitably spill oil and waste that washes up on our coastlines. I promise you, I will take back what has been unjustly stolen from our people. I will make those who have desecrated our land pay. I will get retribution for what they've done to us. Today, I have brought together representatives from the Inupiaq Nation, the Yupik Nation, the Aleut Nation, the Alutiiq Nation, and the Tlingit Nation. Together, we represent the interests of Indigenous communities across Alaska. I have also brought union representatives from the Alaskan branch of the Industrial Workers of the World, who represent the labor force and energy sector of Alaska. Today, I have one goal: to organize. The history of our people has been that of organizing. At least 10,000 years ago, our people inhabited these lands. From the peak of Denali, which happens to share my namesake, to the coasts of the Chukchi and Bering Sea, our people controlled these lands through self-organizing community-to-community relationships. In 1934, the colonial government pressured our people into forming a tribal government, adopting a governance structure that could allow a diverse people that share 23 distinct languages to organize and collectively advocate for our interests. It's time we organize a new governance structure for our peoples, this time without the influence of the colonial government. It's time that we exercise our power as the labor force of Alaska to create a new system, one where the historical grievances of our people are addressed, where reparations are paid, and where retribution is dispensed.
As the representative for the Tlingit Nation, we have also seen the same things you speak of in our own community. But we have to realize the history of our people and the punishments we have collectively bared in our attempts to exercise our own self-determination and independence. Do we really want to give up what we have now for something that we might get in the future? You are young, you have your whole life ahead of you, but as elders, we have seen what can happen in this world. The issue of climate change is not our people's biggest concern. The issue of economic despair is what our people truly need help with.
Don't you realize that either way, they're going to continue to erode what little we have left and take it for themselves? The whole model is built on growth, and if we're going to end up in the same end state where they have grown to take everything, and we have nothing no matter what we do, then we might as well fight back. What I propose is we run a candidate for the Alaskan state governor. We appeal at the grassroots level to indigenous communities and labor unions across our state, and acknowledge the exploitation and the feeling of abandonment that so many in our communities have experienced. We can run on a platform to create a carbon tax on these colonial companies that are extracting our natural resources. We can tie the carbon tax rate to the remaining sea ice extent, so there will be an economic incentive to reduce emissions in order to preserve the remaining 1 million square kilometers of Arctic sea ice that is left at the peak of summer each year. This carbon tax can be a pilot program in restorative climate justice and will fund universal basic income for the people of Alaska. With our collective power, we can influence policy and create a political opening for a candidate that we choose. I volunteer myself to be that candidate and to be the face of this movement.
As the union representatives of the Industrial Workers of the World, Alaskan branch, we support your proposal and pledge to strike alongside you when the time comes.
The Yupik Nation pledges our support.
The Tlingit Nation pledges our support.
The Inupiaq Nation pledges our support.
The Aleut Nation pledges our support.
As the representative for the Alutiiq Nation, we commend your leadership. However, how will our people provide for themselves if we go on strike? Our people did not accept the resource extraction deals that your people did, so we cannot afford to miss a paycheck.
The Industrial Workers of the World has connections in high places and a strong network. We will ensure that your community is protected and provided for during this period of transition.
Then it's decided. We will create a pact among indigenous communities and among the labor force of Alaska to exercise our power. They won't be able to ignore us if we shut down the energy sector and demand a political change. This treaty is a collective agreement between the indigenous community and labor force of Alaska to stand side by side and pledge our allegiance to the collective flourishing of our communities. With my signature, I declare our people's independence from the colonial governing structure that was imposed upon us, and the formation of a new collective governance structure among the people of our great state of Alaska.